for us, for our children, and for our generations, and for all of the generations of the progeny of Israel, your servants, right? More on the same thing, right? God's words are eternal and trustworthy, just as God is. And al harishonim ve'al ha'acharonim, for the first and for the last. This word is good and enduring forever and ever. Truth and faith, a law that will not pass, right? Emet sha'atahu, right? True it is that you are Adonai, our God, and our ancestors' God, our ruler, our ancestors' ruler, our Redeemer and our ancestors' Redeemer, our Creator, the rock of our salvation, our deliverer and our rescuer from eternity is your name. There is no God but you. All right, we've made a transition here.
I don't know about that, but I do know that it seems like it would be a very comforting thing in terms of, slavery or any other kind, because God's always there. We're always going to get
right. You can count on it, right? Yeah. So we've seen the word emet and emunah being repeated several times already. Towards the end of it, right? So from the box on, we start to make a transition. We talk about God was there for our ancestors, just as God is here for us now, right? So we see that constancy. And then at the end of this, we get into redemption. We start to introduce the theme of Geullah. Go'aleinu, go'el avotenu, our Redeemer, the Redeemer of our ancestors. And that's transitions into really the next theme of this prayer, which is the overall theme of the prayer, which is that of redemption. So this may help us understand a little bit more about how the word emet is connected to the idea of, let's say, past redemption and future redemption, right? So emet is about affirming the truth of something, right? And so what we're affirming now is that God saved our ancestors in the past, and we count on God we know that God is going to save us in the present and in the future.
So there's that consistency.
Right, so the emet is really a declaration of consistency. Now emet's doing something else as well, which is it's affirming the words that we've just recited from Torah. Right? This is the first word we say after reciting the Shema. The first word we say is emet. It's true. Everything we just said, it's emet. It's almost like we're giving testimony.
So had you earlier said that God's consistency was connected to the word emunah? So you're saying it's also in the word truth?
Yeah, hold on. Let's back up a second. Okay, so we had chesed and emunah as being the two things that we're supposed to be expressing after the Shema, focusing on chesed in the morning and emunah at night, right? Chesed being redemption, emunah in the past, emunah is redemption in the future. And so the word emet is basically a way of saying it's true, right? God did save our ancestors in the past, and because God can be counted upon to do what God says God is going to do, we know that God is going to redeem us in the future. And so emet is it's a way of giving, really, it's testifying to that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I tried to put it in bold. I'm not sure how well it came through here. The word emet appears a number of times in this cycle. Right here, emet. Do you see my arrow?
No.
All right, see if I can do it.
Emet.
Yeah.
Emet. There's 2. Emet is 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm not sure what's significant about the number 6 here. It's 1 less than 7. But it does appear, more than once, right? So, and that's some indication of that it's an important concept.
I have a question.
Yes.
I forgot, what is al rishonim ועל אחרונים? I don't quite understand it. Who are the rishonim, who are the אחרונים?
Ala Rishonim, since we're talking about past and either present or future, I suspect that's what it refers to. Rishonim means the first ones. So that would probably refer to our ancestors, and Achronim are the later ones, or the last ones. Maybe that refers to us, or maybe it just means the people who came after them.
And the other thing, again, what is adavar hazeh? It's very strange.
Yeah, let's see
Adavar hazeh, why it's kind of indirectly to something. Adavar hazeh.
Where is it?
Where is it?
Okay,
There it is.
it's right here. Hadavar hazeh. So after the list of
Ah.
16 adjectives, we get hadavar hazeh aleinu le'olam va'ed. So true and firm, etc., etc., etc. Hadavar hazeh aleinu le'olam va'ed. Is this davar? Davar is a word.
Yeah.
Is this davar upon us le'olam va'ed, forever, for eternity? So what is the davar that is so true? So it's Torah, right? So but the question is, why is it singular? Is that your question, Shlomo?
No, it would be naturally התורה הזאת. Instead of הדבר הזה, it should
Okay.
say התורה הזאת.
Yeah, so why is the noun davar?
Right. It's kind of strange to refer to the Torah like davar. That's in a way it's not really respectable.
Why is it? I mean, there are a number of words that are used to refer to God's teaching. And we see them biblically, right? So davar is certainly one of them, right? But there's others. Torah is another. Chokhmah is another. You see this a lot in wisdom literature. You see chokhmah, amirah. We're going to see in a little while ne'um, which is like a saying or something. Why in this particular case is it davar? I don't know.
You know, it always bothered me, these two words.
Davar hazeh is this word.
Always bothered me, yeah.
Where's that in the Siddur?
It's all right. So which Siddur do you have, Miriam?
Shabbat.
Shabbat. So it's on 113.
Mm-hmm.
It's, do you see where the Emet V'Yatziv paragraph?
Yes.
So it's in the third line down, the third word in.
Ah, okay.
So after the list of these,
Yeah, I see it.
16
Okay.
words,
Hadavar.
davar is
Hazeh.
the noun that all of these words are
Right.
describing.
Hadavar.
Right. This
Okay.
word is the thing that is true and firm and established,
Mm-hmm.
and so on.
Aleinu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the commentators I was looking at acknowledged the difficulty of this, and basically solved it by translating it in plural. I see. I've mistranslated here because I said this words. It should be this word literally, but really it means these words, i.e., words of Torah. Grammatically, it needs to be singular because all of these adjectives are singular adjectives.
You know, I was thinking that maybe הדבר הזה referring to all this adjective.
I've got a theory. Hadavar hazeh is definitely, it's the noun for all of these adjectives. The word emet, true, does not have a plural form.
Okay.
Right? So in English, we would have truth or truths, but we don't really have that in Hebrew. And so maybe in order to, and since emet comes from Jeremiah, it's biblical, we need to make the rest of these adjectives correspond grammatically to the word emet, which means that the noun that they modify has to also correspond. And that might that might explain why the author of this prayer, who we don't know who it is, why he put it, as a singular. Just speculating. Okay. Oh, let's back up 1 second. If you recall, while we were saying the Shema, we had gathered up our tzitzit and we held on to them, and we got to the third paragraph and we kissed those tzitzit. Each time we said the word tzitzit, we have one more thing we need to do with them. We need to put them down. We need to drop the tzitzit. So, and there is a tradition about when to drop the tzitzit, and that is on this red word here, la'ad. And in the Siddur, in Sim Shalom, they have the paragraph that begins emet v'yatziv, and then the next paragraph begins udvarav chayim v'kayamim. Right. So this word la'ad comes in as the sixth word of that sentence. Udvarav chayim v'kayamim ne'emanim v'nechamadim la'ad olmei olamim. And notice here we've taken davar hazeh, singular, and now we've made it plural. Dvarav, his words. And we've used what? Plural adjectives. Chayim v'kayamim, they are living and enduring. Ne'emanim is faithful, v'nechamadim and desirable. But these are all plural forms of the words. And then la'ad means forever, olmei olamim, and to the ends of time, right? To eternity, the eternities of eternities. So I remember learning when I was getting ready for my bar mitzvah, the cantor taught me that we should let go of the tzitzit when we get to that word la'ad. Right, you give them a final kiss and drop them. Why? He didn't tell me why.
Do you know why?
I have a theory. I went back and asked him a few years ago, and he said it's because it comes right after the word describing the words of Torah as nechamadim, which are desirable. And so as kind of a final expression of our love for Torah, we kiss them right afterwards. That might be a reason. The word la'ad also looks like the word aid, and an aid is a witness. And so as we've seen, that the whole point of using the word emet is almost like giving a kind of testimony, right? We're witnessing to the faithfulness of God's covenantal actions. And so, and then if thinking about saying of the Shema, saying the Shema is a declaration of our commitment to God's, to the yoke of heaven. Or the second paragraph of the Shema, it's our commitment to the mitzvot. So la'ad, it's like we're giving edut, we're giving testimony to this.
And there's the two large letters in the Shema.
Right. So yeah, the ayin and the dalet in the Shema were also enlarged, if you recall. And we had some explanations back earlier. We need to prolong the dalet. We need to, or we're concerned about not saying acher, and so we say echad. And so the ayin and the dalet may be a reference to that as well. But the problem with that problem with all these explanations is that this is not the first. It's not the first aid that we've had. In the sentence immediately before that, we have la'ad kayamet. So why do we not focus on that la'ad and instead we focus on this la'ad? I don't know. And I've looked it up on a number of occasions and have not really found an answer to this question. And maybe it's something as simple as some rabbi, put his tzitzit down and his student saw him do it and thought, oh, that must be where you're supposed to put down your tzitzit. That's
It's kind of, the
Sure.
word is not even the end of the half of the sentence,
No.
because the next two words, there's the comma, but la'ad doesn't have any comma. It's right in the middle of something.
yeah. It's well. First of
weird.
all, don't trust the punctuation too much. If you compare punctuation from one Siddur to the next, it's not at all
Oh,
consistent.
different.
Because
Okay.
when they originally writing this stuff, there was no punctuation.
Is there a trope for this?
No, this is not, because it's not biblical.
Okay.
All right. Next paragraph, right? So this next paragraph is usually printed all together. So I kind of broke it up into sections. This is where we transition into talking about redemption more explicitly. Ezrat avotenu atahu me'olam. The help of our ancestors you have been from eternity. Shield and savior for their children after them in every generation. In the height of the world is your habitation, and your justice and righteousness are until the ends of the earth. Happy is the one who obeys your commandments and who places your Torah and your words upon his heart. True, there we have Emet. Emet, true it is that you are Lord to your people and mighty king to battle their battle. True it is that you are first and that you are last. And other than you, we do not have any king who redeems and saves. Okay.
What does redemption mean? I mean,
What does redemption? Okay, that's a good question. So it means something specific, and we're gonna, that's coming up immediately next.
okay.
Right? But first, I just want to point out the concept of time. We've already seen this concept, past and either present or future, and it's just repeating over and over again, right? Help of our ancestors, me'olam, from eternity, from the very beginning, shield and savory for their children after them in every generation, i.e. up until our own. Okay. So we have
saving different things, or is it just synonyms?
Yes, I think that comes into Elizabeth's question of what do we mean when we say redemption, right? There's the redemption from Egypt, which is the paradigmatic redemption, right? It's the model for all redemptions. And so, well, let's go on to the next section. Mimitzrayim ge'altanu Adonai Eloheinu. From Egypt you redeemed us, Adonai our God. And now we're going to go into detail about various miraculous acts of chesed, right? At least from our perspective, they're acts of chesed. Things that God did to redeem us from Egypt as expressions of God's love. And if you recall from that passage in the Talmud that we saw, where based on the verse from Psalms that we've got to speak of Lagid baboker chastecha, we have to speak of your chesed in the morning, every morning. And so that chesed is that's the past act of redemption in Egypt. All right, let's see if I can fix this.
Here we are.
Okay, so from Egypt you redeemed us, Adonai our God, and from the house of slavery you ransomed us. All of their firstborn you killed, and your firstborn you saved. And the sea of reeds you split, and the insolent you drowned. And the precious you brought over, and the water covered their oppressors. Not a single one of them remained. Right? You can see the balance here, right? Did something good for us, did something bad to them, right? Of course, they deserved it because they were the enslavers. For this, the beloved praised and exalted God, and the precious offered songs, poems, and praises, blessings and thanks to the King, living and eternal God, high and exalted, great and awesome, who brings down the haughty and raises up the lowly, who brings out the captive and who redeems the humble, and who helps the poor, and who answers his people at the time of their crying out to him. Praises to God most high, most blessed is he. All right, so in this section, the first half of this section, we're talking about the miracles in the Exodus. right? So we saw it. And then we make a shift. For this, the beloved praised and exalted God. So who are these beloved and what did they do to praise and exalt God?
The beloved must be Israel.
Okay. And so what do they do to praise and exalt God?
Oh, that's the Song of the Sea.
Song of the Sea, right? So hang on to that. So we get an entire sentence describing this, opening up, talking about this song that they're reciting. And then we make another shift and we start bringing in some verbs. I'll look at the Hebrew here. Mashpil ge'im. Mashpil is to bring down, to bring low. Ge'im are the haughty. Magbia is to lift up. Shfalim, the bent over, those who are down in the dust. Motzi asirim, frees prisoners. Podeh anavim, right, redeems the humble. Ozer dalim, helps the poor, right? So are these past acts of redemption? This is not talking about Egypt anymore. Now, these are almost generic things, but something important to point out is that the verbs here are all present tense verbs, right? These are things that God does, not things that God did, right? Mashpil, magbia, motzi, fodeh, ozer, oneh. These are all present tense, right? And these are the things that we can count on God to do. It's emet and emunah, right? It's true that this is in God's nature, and emunah, we can count on God doing these things. And so we use the redemption from Egypt as the model, as kind of almost it's the paradigm of redemption, but redemption is something that occurs on a daily basis, and we can count on that. And then we end. Tilot le'elyon baruch hu mavarach. Praises to God Most High, most blessed is He. And the last sentence really doesn't belong with this. It's really an introduction to what's coming up next, but it's always printed, at the end of this paragraph. Moshe v'nei Yisrael, so Moses and the children of Israel, and in prayer books in recent years, they've added Miriam, Moshe u'Miriam uvnei Yisrael, Moses and Miriam and the children of Israel. Why? Because the Torah itself has Miriam participating in the Song of the Sea. So what do? Lecha anu shira b'simcha rabah v'amru chulam. They responded in song to you with great joy, all declaring, colon. There needs to be a colon right there, right? This is a lead in, because what's coming next? All right, so chulam. This is where we are in our prayer. What comes next? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ela. This is from the Song of the Sea. This is a quote from Exodus. This is what the Israelites sang. And so you can see how the previous paragraph said that your beloved ones, they sang to you. And now we're introducing it with this final sentence of the paragraph. And now we're actually quoting the song that they sang. Who is like you among the gods, Adonai? Who is like you? Majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders. Okay. And then it goes on. Shira chadasha shivchu geulim l'shimcha al sfat hayam yachad kulam hodu v'imlichu v'amru. A new song the redeemed sang to your name at the bank of the sea. Who are the redeemed? The Israelites who just come out of Egypt. Together, all of them gave thanks and acclaimed your sovereignty, saying, and what do they say? Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, which is the very end of the Song of the Sea. All right, the Lord will reign forever and ever. And so now we see we're actually quoting Torah, which is talking about the eternity of God's reign. And so we can see that everything that's come before us, talking about God's actions in the past and God's actions in the present and the future, it's all kind of derived from the Song of the Sea that the Israelites sang after leaving Egypt. All right, now, final paragraph before the Amidah. Tzur Yisrael, right? Rock of Israel, kuma. This is a command verb. We are ordering God to rise up, be'ezrat Yisrael, to the assistance of Israel. Ufdei chin umecha Yehuda v'Yisrael. Fidei, this is another command verb, right? Fidei means redeem, right? Redeem kin umecha. A neum is a saying, right? And we often see this word appearing in the prophets. So a prophet will, have some long poem, prophetic poem or something like that. And then we'll say neum Adonai, a saying of the Lord, right? So this is the way of the prophet saying that everything I'm about to say, or that I've just said, I am kind of channeling God in this, right? This is God's spirit speaking through me as the prophet. So a neum is something that God said. So pidei kineumecha, redeem according to what you have said, Yehuda v'Yisrael, Judah and Israel. You should redeem the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. Go aleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo kadosh Yisrael. Our Redeemer, Lord of hosts is his name, is the Holy One of Israel, just in case there was any question about who our Redeemer is. And then our chatima, our closing blessing, Baruch atah Hashem Ga'al Yisrael. Blessed are you, Hashem. And now we're back to the past tense, Ga'al Yisrael. It's really the one who he redeemed Israel, the one who redeemed Israel. So we refer back to the paradigmatic redemption. All right. Any questions on this passage so far?
So just to clarify and summarize, I guess. So it's taking the past redemption, talking about current things God does to redeem us, and then it's kind of putting it all in context. And then says, this is, and then it ties that with the emet and the emunah that we talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, these are the dominant themes that we've seen here.
But you said we would come back to the redemption. We didn't.
We did. Well, no, because we talked about, you asked what was the redemption. So the redemption is the redemption from Egypt.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
So leaving Egypt, going through the sea, and then giving thanks on the other side. So that's the story of redemption that we tell. Right. We tell it in our prayers every single day. We focus on it at Pesach as well. Right. But it comes up. I mean, we're told, and I think we looked at this passage already. It appears in the Haggadah as well, right? So we're supposed to speak of the redemption, the exodus from Egypt, all the days of our lives, right? All the days. Why doesn't it just say the days of our lives? It says all the days of our lives. It's the days and the nights as well, right? And then another rabbi says, it's this world and the next world, right? So, but it's something that we're supposed to mention every single day. We saw at the beginning, the Talmud says we've got to focus on the past redemptions in the morning and the future redemptions in the evening, but really we've done both of those. And in fact,
but what are the future redemptions?
So what are the future redemptions? So,
I mean, I think of the Holocaust,
mm-hmm.
Not a redemption.
Right. So I think it's first of all, it's somewhat intentionally ambiguous, because redemption is something that people experience in their lives, it's something very personal. So people experience redemption all the time. We've experienced moments of national redemption, just as we've experienced moments of personal tragedy and national tragedy. But the idea here is that we're supposed to live with hope and some sort of certainty that there is going to be redemption, that there's going to be really probably in traditional context, an ultimate redemption, which is kind of a messianic redemption.
And outside of the Exodus from Egypt, are there any other major redemptions that we refer to, or just on the smaller scale and the personal?
Well, we talk about like the return from exile, from the Babylonian exile, as being a redemption. In for Israel, like we refer to Israel as Reshit Smichad Geulatenu in the prayer for the state of Israel, right? The beginning of the flowering of our redemption. So we kind of describe the ingathering of exiles as fitting into this narrative of redemption. But as we see the way that prayers work, and we see this going back to the Psalms, is that they are sufficiently vague that they can be applied in lots of different circumstances. Right? So, yeah, I mean, someone going through terrible suffering, or someone during the Holocaust, what are they thinking about when they're reciting these prayers?
Exactly.
I could see somebody being cynical and saying, "Where's God?" I could also imagine someone finding hope in this and looking at past moments when God has redeemed the Jewish people and having some sort of hope that God will redeem us from this situation now. But I think it's a very personal thing, but I think the vagueness of the prayer enables it to be applied in lots of different circumstances. In the daily Amidah that's coming, several of the brachot in that Amidah focus on redemption. So it's certainly a theme that's going to continue.
About the fallen and the captive and the lowly, and that's coming up in the second bracha of the Amidah. It's
right.
Yeah. Why are we focusing on that? We're about to get there.
Well, because this is leading us up to that, and we'll look at that next week in closer, because
we'll get through Avot in less than a week. But sure.
Oh yeah, no problem. Well, even before that, because just as we saw that the rabbis set up the service that we're supposed to draw a connection from the end of the Shema into this prayer, no interruptions. Similarly, we're supposed to go from this prayer into the Amidah without interruptions, and we'll look at how they frame that next week. I do want to look at just this one phrase. Go Aleinu Adonai Tzvot Shemo Kadosh Yisrael. So this is the last phrase that we say before the final closing bracha. It's quoting Isaiah chapter 47. This is known by scholars as Deutero Isaiah, second Isaiah, who is speaking from exile to the Jewish people in exile and telling them that God is going to redeem them from the horrible situation that we're in right now. And so the chapter begins, and Isaiah is actually directing his prophecy to the Babylonians. Get down, sit in the dust, fair maiden Babylon, sit dethroned on the ground. O fair Chaldea, nevermore shall they call you the tender and dainty one. Grasp the handmill and grind meal. Remove your veil, strip off your train, bare your leg, wade through the rivers. Your nakedness shall be uncovered, and your shame shall be exposed. I will take vengeance, and let no man intercede, right? The Babylonian Empire is going down, right? And then our verse, our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts is his name, is the Holy One of Israel, right? So Isaiah is announcing that our God, the God of the Jewish people, is, you better watch out because he's coming for you. And so the framer of this prayer in the Siddur took that sentence and concluded it. Who is the one who's doing all this redemption? Our Redeemer. What is God's name? Adonai Tzvaot, right? So the word Yud-He, so Yud-He Vav-He, which is God's personal name, that's actually only part of God's full name. God's full personal name with titles is Adonai Tzvaot Yoshev Keruvim, right? The Lord of hosts seated upon the cherubs. And so what Isaiah is doing here is he's invoking, God with at least part of God's title, right? Lord of hosts. That's who is the one who is the Holy One of Israel and is the Redeemer of the Jewish people. And so that's actually interesting. So maybe this is already making the jump that we need, which is saying that this past redemption of Israel from Egypt is not the only time that God redeems us in history. There's another moment as well. And if the prophet Isaiah can speak to the exiles in Babylonia with these words, then he can speak to us with these words as well.
Rabbi, what is Lord of Hosts? What is
Yeah, so the
hosts?
hosts are the heavenly retinue, right? These are all the angels. It's saying
Oh,
that God is the God's in charge, and
God.
So it says cherubs that also that are the hosts.
yeah, I mean, so who are the hosts? The hosts are the retinue of angels. We saw earlier, all of the planets and the stars and the sun and the moon. These are all part of the heavenly, the heavenly throne room, and then there's the angels. All of these are part of God's hosts.
I have a question. Ask?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Sometimes you say Hashem is Elokei Israel, the God of the nation of Israel, but many places it's called Elokei Haolam, the King of the universe. So how God can have two crowns, one for the whole universe and one dedicated for the Jewish people? Why
So,
they don't
but think about the formula of the bracha. Baruch atah Hashem. Blessed are you. Yud He Vav He. We're invoking you by your name. And who are you? Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. You're our God, and you're Melech HaOlam. Right? You're
So
the
the title is for God is not the God of the world, is the King of the world.
King. Right?
But for us is the God, is a God.
Right. So I guess it's an expression of that we, the Jewish people, we take it upon ourselves to worship only Yud He Vav He, and we also know that Yud He Vav He is the creator of the entire world. So,
but he's not the God of the entire world, or is the only?
Well, I
the
think
king?
so. I think so, and I think that's what Isaiah is getting at. I mean, he's kind of putting a dig at them, right? Like our God, we're this lowly people living in your land, but we believe in the true God, and that true God is going to come and is going to demolish you, and right, you're going to be nothing anymore, and no man can intercede, right? Lo efga Adam.
Yeah.
God is the only one who has the power to do this.
I would like to make a comment. I said to Israel probably 1,000 times in my life, but only now I notice it says Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael, said God rise up, but also this is the time that we get up for the Shmona Esrei.
Yes. So what Shlomo's pointing out is that it's customary to stand up at the beginning of Tzur Yisrael. That's when everybody stands up. Although it actually may make more sense to stand up on Kuma, because Kuma literally means get up.
Right.
Right. Although we're telling God to get up, and I've seen some people actually make a point of standing up on the word Kuma. So why are we standing up here? It's that we're standing up a paragraph early, the Amidah, which literally means the standing prayer. It's part of it. When we'll look at the sources next week, but it's part of this idea that we're supposed to connect Geullah to Tefillah. The blessing of Geullah, of redemption, has to go right into the Amidah. And so a way of making sure there's no interruption is to make sure that we're already standing when we get there. All right. So this is a good place to stop. This is the first. We got through the whole bracha in one session.
Good.
All right.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Everyone have a wonderful week.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
you
much.
too.
Very interesting. Yeah, very good lesson.
Thank you.